Welcome back to our channel. So it's not Halloween and we are well past October, but today I want to chat a little bit about what that eerie, spooky, creepy client looks like as an online business manager. So if you missed last week's video, we were chatting all about qualities that make for an ideal OBM client. But in today's video, I really want to get into what to look out for so that you can avoid this hellish nightmare client. And before I do, I just wanted to let you guys know that next week is OBM week, and OBM week is a free event that we run inside our Confident OBM community. If you head on over to sarahnoqued.com/OBM-week, and I'll leave that link below this video, you'll have an opportunity to register for the event for free. So starting next week on Tuesday, I'm going to be going live with a masterclass about a really awesome OBM topic, things like getting clients, pricing, packaging, everything in between. We're going to be covering a topic and then we're going to be having a little bit of Q&A. So this is going to be a really great opportunity for you if you're just getting started as an online business manager or you're thinking about ramping things up. You do not want to miss this. So register below. If you can't make it live, replays will be made available to those who register for a limited amount of time. So if you are an OBM or you're thinking about becoming an OBM, this is definitely a really, really great event for you to just, hanker down and focus on your own business development for just a little while. So let's get right into this notion of a nightmare client. So I have definitely had my fair share of nightmare clients over the years as an online business manager, and it's been really eye-opening for me. I want to really put this caveat in before I get into these qualities, because one of the things that I've realized over the years is that very much like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, we as OBMs oftentimes create this monster of a client, right? We create this nightmare client because we ourselves have lacked boundaries. We ourselves don't have the right onboarding measures in place. And I'm going to get into this. Typically, a nightmare client has no boundaries. They might think that you work full-time for them, even though you're on like a 20-hour monthly retainer. Nightmare clients also don't really understand the reasons why systems are important, or that standard operating procedures need to be documented, or different team needing to be in the right seat. So oftentimes they are just not prioritizing what foundations they need in place, either because they're very reactionary mode, like we need to launch and we don't have time for systems and we have to kind of work with what we have. So as online business managers, we don't always have perfect clients, but I just find that systems and this indication of their, affinity for systems and for, stability oftentimes is maybe not so clear, or maybe not even on the table. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, how is this person ever going to reach their goals if they're not willing to slow down to get those systems in place? So that's very nightmarish for me personally. Now, the next thing is that, and this pisses me off to no end, is when clients miss meetings. They forget, or they're very late, or they reschedule last minute. That to me is like a deal breaker. If a client is late for a meeting, or constantly missing your meetings, or constantly rescheduling at the last minute, you have a few choices here, right? You can call the client out on their BS and say, hey, dear client, I have a policy in my business that, you have to cancel with me 24 hours in advance, or I bill you for those meetings. So what I'm saying here is, this goes back to that first point of boundaries and expectations. When you are first getting started with a client, you have to tell them what your policies are around meetings. Even after you have reinforced your policies or maybe established those from the beginnings, if the client is still not respecting your time, then that merits a conversation. And that would be a deal breaker for me, honestly, because if they're not available to have these meetings with me, then I'm not going to be able to push their projects along. I'm not going to be able to align myself necessarily with their vision and their goals. Definitely a deal breaker, but has to be mentioned here that you set the policies to begin with. So if the policies aren't clear, and the client doesn't know any better, then, maybe they're just like wishy-washy about their own meeting times and people, showing up for their own meetings. Whatever that is, you as an OBM, you come into that situation with those expectations to begin with. Another thing that I see coming up is when an OBM client isn't treating you almost like an equal. And yes, you're working for them and they've hired you as a OBM to come into their business, but when we come in as online business managers, you have to sort of come in from that perspective of partnership, of, bringing to the table your own special sauce, coming together with that client to make magic in their business. So if you're feeling kind of stuck in this, for lack of better terminology, assistant role. So oftentimes we see this with virtual assistants that are transitioning to the OBM role. It can be very, very difficult to go from assistant to partner or manager in somebody's business. So that can also lead to a nightmarish client. Now, the last big one for me is really I talk a lot about your why and being clear about, why you're doing the OBM role to begin with. Why do you need to make this work from home or work remotely position work for you? You have to really have a bottom line reason, or a few of them, that can help you overcome difficult situations with clients. So you might be in a situation where you are literally thinking to yourself, I can't do this, this is too difficult. And eventually you overcome that difficult situation because you reach out to the right people, you get the right resources that you need, and you make it through. But if your why is not strong enough, sometimes you might back out or walk away before you've even had a time to overcome that challenge. Because as online business managers, just the natural nature of our industry is things are constantly flexing and changing and moving and shaking. Things are not stagnant. Things are dynamic. So if you're not willing to kind of put yourself out there or grow yourself and grow your own skills as an OBM, you're going to find that perhaps it's not enough to really keep you in the game. And you might just be like, well, I'm going back to my 9 to 5 because it's easier. So you have to recognize that as an online business manager, it's not an easy thing to become an OBM. Yes, we have transferable skills and there are certain systems that we can work out that make it easier for us. But when push comes to shove, you still, at the end of the day, need to have a very strong reason why you need to make this work for yourself, because there will be times where you have a difficult client or something is not going your way and you're ready to give up. So it has to be enough to help you overcome that. So we've talked a lot about this nightmare client, and I think I've sort of painted this hellish picture for you. I hope you're still with me and I haven't completely freaked you out or scared you off. But the reality is that a lot of the times we ourselves, like the Mary Shelley analogy, make these nightmare clients. We start off these relationships with no expectations or no boundaries ourselves. So, we're giving the client the impression that we are available 24/7. We're trying to people please. We're trying to make the client happy. And actually, in doing that, there is this short-term, feeling of, yay, my client loves me, followed by the dread of like, oh my God, now the client's going to expect me to be available on weekends or available past 7 p.m. or available at the times when I put my child to sleep or whatever that looks like for you. So sometimes setting those expectations and boundaries from the get-go, whether it's in a welcome package, whether you mention it on your discovery call, it needs to be said, right? There needs to be clear understanding that if you're working a 20-hour monthly retainer, you are not necessarily available 9 to 5. Like there might be certain times of the day where you answer emails or you're available for meetings, but it just has to be very clear from the get-go. Otherwise, it starts to really impede on your personal time and your space, and it can feel like stifling. Now, when I mentioned about clients not loving systems or not really putting the right people in the right seats on the bus or not being invested in setting up that foundation in their business, the truth of the matter is that that's why they've called us to help them, right? There's a reason why the client can't get past this point of scaling their course, or they are, can't move from one-to-one coaching to one-to-many. There are reasons for this, and there are reasons why they bring us in as online business managers. And whether you look at it as a curse or as a blessing, these are just regular people who perhaps lack the skill set to implement the right systems or document the right SOPs or think critically about the team or lead the team or have great agendas for meetings. Like our clients, bless them, they are visionaries. We are there to provide that safe space for them to do their thing. And part of that means being a leader. Part of that means bringing those systems to the table and saying, hey, client, I know that you want to get this launch going. And I know that Susie is a great team member, but I also know that if we don't get these SOPs in place, we're going to X, Y, and Z. So you really do have to a lot of the times have difficult conversations with your client where you have to raise a flag or say, hey, while I hear you about X, Y, and Z, I also think that we need to start thinking about, doing this. And if you have this feeling, and I know if you're still listening to me here in this video, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you love when things are organized. You love those checklists. Your client's not necessarily going to feel that way. And it's okay to think differently. It's okay to recognize that clients are just regular people like you and I, and they're not perfect beings. Even though sometimes you look at them from the outside, or the way their public persona is displayed on Instagram is like, wow. And then you get into the back end of their business and you're like, ay, this was not what I expected. Now, I mentioned about the why, right? You have to really be clear on your why. And again, it is not uncommon to have difficult clients. Like, as online business managers, this is not an easy peasy, lemon squeezy kind of job. We are getting intimately involved with our clients. We are learning about their businesses and their vision and their goals. And, a lot of the times, just naturally, as you engage with your clients, you start to learn a lot about them, about their personal and their professional. Like, it's just natural. So I really want you to remember that our clients are amazing human beings. They are visionary. They are these incredible entrepreneurs that are there are change makers. They are what is creating change in our world today. And it is important to remember that clients are going to be difficult. We are just human beings at the end of the day. So you have to remember that, and you have to know that you are here to give them some of the things that they lack in their business, like the structure, like the systems, like the foundation, like being that sounding board, being able to build their team, all the things that they don't necessarily have in their toolbox. And that is a privilege. That is really a privilege. So when you're thinking about that Frankenstein you've created or that nightmare client you've created, I want you to really think back to what role you played in that equation and recognize that we're not perfect OBMs and we grow with every client that we get. And always remember that you can walk away, right? That's the other piece of this is, as contractors and service support professionals, we are usually our own boss and we get to make these decisions. So there are times where you will have to leave these difficult relationships, and there will be times where you have to make the call and say, this is just not worth salvaging. I'm moving on with my life. And that's okay. It is not a failure. It is just a natural part of this growth journey that is entrepreneurship. So here's my final thought on clients. I want you to remember that you can walk away at any time from a relationship that doesn't serve you, both in your personal life and in your professional life. And I often, especially in OBM school, especially with our students in the programs, I always encourage people to put on that Buddhist mentality of non-attachment. You are not attached to your clients. We are fluid beings. We are growing ourselves as online business managers, and every client that you work with will teach you something about yourself and about your own expectations and boundaries and the vision that you have for your own business. So with that in mind, remember that nothing is for certain and that things will naturally change and evolve. And don't forget that OBM Week is happening next week. Again, the link below this video is there for you to sign up. It is for people who register, and it is a free event. Replays will be made available, and I hope to see you live next week for OBM Week. And until then, take care. See you next week.